Everybody ready? Good afternoon, everyone. This is the regular meeting of Thursday, February 16th of the City Council, Library Board, Housing Authority Board, and the City Council representing the redevelopment successor agencies. And if we would, we will have Ms. Sylvia Nino lead us in the flag salute.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Hobart.
Here.
Councilmember Kite.
Here.
Councilmember Smotrich. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Townsend. Here. And Mayor Weil.
Here. At this time, I'd like to comment that unfortunately we had a very valuable and long-standing contributor to our world-class library pass away in the last week. Linda Bray moved to Palm Springs in 1965. She was the principal of the Rancho Mirage Elementary School, and she was the deputy superintendent of schools. She was a volunteer at the bookstore starting in 2006 through 2016. Linda was a member of the Library Foundation Board since 2010, and she was Volunteer of the Year in 2015 as per Riverside County. She has been a generous library donor and has funded programming and has named several bookcases. Linda died on Monday, February 6, 2017. A commemorative plaque noting Linda's contributions of time, ideas, and generous support will be installed in the library's Book Nook on Wednesday, March 7th, during the next Library Foundation meeting. And if you would be so kind as to join us in a moment of silence on behalf of Linda. Thank you, and Linda, our thoughts and prayers are with you.
Ted,
Yes.
could I just say a brief comment about Linda?
Yes, please.
I had the pleasure of working with Linda for about 15 years since I've been on the council, both as a member of the foundation and also the library commission. Don't know of anybody that was any more committed to our library system and helping people in the library itself. And as you've just heard about some of the things she's done, she was so much involved, and we all loved her very much and will miss her very much. She was really part of the library. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Well deserved. Is there anybody else that cares to make a comment?
I would say I'm pretty sure that I was the one that appointed Linda to the Library Foundation. The only hesitation I've got is I suspect we all wish we had or would have if somebody else didn't appoint her to the Library Foundation. She was, as Richard said, dedicated to the library, dedicated to the city of Rancho Mirage. She was preceded in death by her husband, who was an architect, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe 5 years earlier, or something like that. And between them, they were just major powers or forces in the city of Rancho Mirage. And we will definitely miss Linda Bray.
Amen.
For sure, and a perpetual smile on her face, and as dedicated as anybody could be. Well, thank you, everybody, for the kind comments. The next presentation will be by Carol Scott, the Children's Discovery Museum. And Carol, if you'd be so kind to come to the podium. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all the honorable council members here. It's always a pleasure to be here. And I have with me today Kyle Pong, who is our Director of Museum Advancement, and very much my right hand, and keeps me on track, which is probably necessary. It was about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, when I came as the new director and told you of all my hopes and plans and dreams, and I thought it was time that I came back and told you which one of those has come to fruition and which ones we're still working on, and to mainly say thank you, because the city has been so supportive of the efforts at the Children's Museum. So let me begin by thank you and tell you exactly where we are and what we're still working on. I hope that some of you got by to see one of the best installments we had in our traveling exhibit program. I began last year by telling you that we needed to bring new life to the museum, and this is the way we have done it. We installed throughout the year, actually, 4 traveling exhibits, and this was by far and away the most popular. And it was in the museum for 3 months. And during those 3 months, we had over 21,000 people that toured and took advantage of the Chagall exhibit. It was a beautiful exhibit designed for children, and we were very fortunate to have it. And it was sponsored by the Holman Galleries and the Freed family. We also had, who just left, this is Clifford, the big red dog, and if you have had children or grandchildren in your home, you probably do know what this means and who Clifford is. He was there for 3 months. He left last January 9th, the 1st of January. Again, incredibly popular and very well received. We also purchased, actually, the traveling games exhibit. We were fortunate to negotiate a very, very low price for a traveling exhibit that was being retired. And we now house this exhibit in our storage, and we'll bring it out every summer. It is Playing Together Games, and we purchased that with the GoFundMe effort, and Susan and Ed Berger, who wrapped up what we couldn't get through our GoFundMe account. It's a fabulous exhibit, and it tells the history of games, and children and adults really enjoyed this exhibit. Now this one, I hope you can see the 2 people on those tricycles. We took an existing grass maze that really was not being used at all in the museum, and with your help, the city funded what I call the trike track. And we have 18 well-built, major European trikes that the kids get to ride. We still have a shortage of staff, so it's only open a couple of hours a day, but it's by far and away the most popular thing right now at the museum. And a real big heartfelt thanks, because without the city, we could not have done this. And you should see the parents and the kids riding these giant trikes. They love it. You know, the beauty of being at the museum is 6.5 acres of outdoor exhibitories, and this is our first outdoor exhibit, but it will not be our last. We want to take advantage of that kind of acreage, which is really one of the largest acreages in all of the Children's Museum world. We are probably one of the top 15 in the amount of outdoor acreage we have, so we want to turn that in to a state-of-the-art outdoor exhibit experience. And then the last exhibit that is new to us is our Lowe's Makerspace. We were chosen by the 3 regional Lowe's groups to be their project for their Heroes project this year, and they came in and turned a very unused space into a makerspace. This has real tools, real hammers, real saws, real equipment, drills, and the kids literally come and make things in this space. Again, we're limited in staff, so we can't keep it open all the time. But maker spaces are one of the most popular exhibits throughout the Children's Museum world, and we are very proud to be able to offer this. And we're looking for volunteers who like to tinker so that they can come and lead these workshops. Our education program, we have completely changed the school program, which I told you we were doing last year. We now offer a pre-lesson, a post-lesson, a formal 45-minute lesson. It lines up with the California State Curriculum Guidelines, and our school tours have increased by 26% since we've started this program. We also have a Discovery Camp that has expanded and is a beneficiary of very strong increased revenue and attendance. Our toddler programs have expanded, and we now have a designated toddler space for children 4 and under that is safe, where the big kids can't kind of run over them. Last year, in September, we developed, with partnership from Edison, who funded it, but also the City of Rancho Mirage, who was one of our partners, and the Hero in You, which is a program that we have developed with Bunny Benarin. And we will repeat this project every year. We feel that it's necessary to really focus on children and how to be safe and to be prepared for disaster. And so again, thank you for the city being a great partner in that project. Another new project, or another new partnership, is that Hero in Me, and this is Rocket. Forgot his name. Rocket comes alive on a screen, and he works through how to be prepared with the kids through animation and actually through a Skype call. So Rocket literally can talk to the kids in the audience and point them out. We are also partnering with the river. We have a small satellite location there that we offer a drop-off and dine. And parents can drop off their children and have dinner on their own, or they can go to the movie, or they can do both, and they can play and participate in our programming at the river. We also were a part of Stagecoach last year and will be a part this year. What you see there is the giant trike track, train table, excuse me. And that is one of the most popular things in our museum. The children actually pop up through the holes and they can play with the Brio train. We actually have had a few men who have decided that they want to pop up and participate in the train table too. We try to keep them on the outside, but it again is a very interactive exhibit. We funded that with the help of Stagecoach, but also the Riverside, the Imperial County Corrections actually had the inmates make that table for us, so it was a very, very low cost to us. We're very resourceful in how we get things done. When you have no money, you have to be. Now, Clifford left, and now, if you come to the museum, you can witness and be a part of Attack of the Bloodsuckers. It usually gets moans and groans from adults, but the kids love it. It opened last Saturday and will be there through May. And we have a collection of live leeches and mosquitoes, and it will be the backdrop for multiple science lessons in the next few months. And it's sponsored, and it was sponsored, excuse me, by Comtor Dermatology, and we are very thankful for that. We are very proud that this year we hit over 70,000 in visitation, and it's the first time since 2009 that we have gone over 70,000. So we're very excited about that. Our earned revenue has increased to be anywhere from 80 to 85% of our budget, which is, again, very high for a children's museum to be that much into earned revenue. We still struggle for the 15 to 20% donor base. We are rebuilding our donor base, and that continues to be, right now, our focus. We're building support for that donor base and trying our best to rebuild the donor base that the museum used to have years ago. The programs that we are focused on in the next year will be to increase our service to at-risk children and children with special needs, which I have a great passion around. We're building attendance through our Museums for All, and we started that program, I think, shortly after where we were here last year. It's a program for anyone who has an EBT card that can attend the museum for $2. And that program has been surprisingly successful. I thought it would take a while to build, but we've had significant participation in that. Next January, the museum will be celebrating its 20th anniversary. And in 1998, I think when the museum opened there, it's hard to believe that it's still there. We're beginning to benefit from the joys of being 19 years old and the challenges for being 19 years old. Deferred maintenance has become one of our biggest challenges. But in those almost 20 years, there have been 1,307,000 visitors to the Children's Museum. And we obviously have a big increase during season, but we have a significant attendance of year-round people here in the museum or in the desert, and we're very proud of that. And that's pretty much where we are, what we're doing. I'm happy to entertain if you have any questions.
Well, it's pretty remarkable what you've done. You talk about 19 years and aging. We can all relate to aging. But what a terrific thing for the kids to be exposed, for example, to culture like the Chagall exhibit. I mean, to be indoctrinated that young into the arts is just fabulous. And anyone that saw the interactive program with The Hero and You,
Yes.
which is a remarkable program that where the kids are actually talking to this animated figure, and what's unknown is that that figure is in another location,
Yes.
listening to the kids and reacting to their comments. To see it in action is just fabulous. And so what you're doing is remarkable, and I commend you for making that contribution to our city.
Thank you, Mayor. There were a couple of things when I came that I thought were really missing from the museum. One is that the arts and the music and the art had not been focused on in years. And we really are the prime example to introduce those things to children. And one of the first things, of course, was the Chagall, but once a year we will have some traveling exhibit focused on art and be age appropriate. And also we really had no interactive technology, and we really needed that. So thank you for pointing out two things that we really were a priority for us.
Great, thank you.
You know, I think the growth of the programs, to me, it just blew my mind, what you have added, plus the facilities. It's, you know, congratulations, outstanding. Really.
Thank you. The building is beautiful, but people don't come back just for a building. So our priority for the last year has been a total revamp, refresh, and expansion of our program. And I'm very proud of what we've added. And We're now really focusing on some of our infrastructure board. Council member Iris has helped me begin our first community advisory council. And I really feel that we need to be more connected to the community. I feel strongly that a children's museum has great potential social capital in a community, and that's a high priority this year. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Ted,
Yes,
I'd just
Richard.
say one thing. Last night, I had an opportunity to attend a fundraiser for the museum up at Bighorn. It was overwhelming from the support standpoint. The Bighorn Country Club members turned out. And do you want to just make a brief comment about last night?
Well, thank you, Richard. One of the priorities has been to build back the donor base that we need, and we were fortunate in that Bighorn Charities and R.D. Hubbard backed that event for us, and we honored him because of all of his work in education and children with what we call a traditional program that's not just in our children's museum, but in all children's museums, and that's called the Great Friend to Kids Award that we will do annually. And we're very proud of the event. It was wildly successful for us. We haven't had a successful adult fundraiser in years, and this was incredibly successful. I think we raised close to $100,000 last night, net profit. So that's my kind of fundraiser. We also are bringing back some of the famous fundraisers that the museum did years ago called Duck Pluck, which is, I like to do family fundraisers throughout the year, and we've started a new one 2 years now called Touch a Truck, and we have, well, I don't know, I think we had almost 20 major trucks and vehicles on the museum site in the fall, and it's a toss-up whether the kids enjoy seeing and touching and riding the trucks more than the adults do. The Touch a Truck and the Duck Pluck will be our family fundraisers, but last night was really the start of hopefully a successful annual adult fundraiser.
Okay. Carol, I would also like to add my congratulations to both you and Kyle. I know how hard you have been working through the last couple of years, bringing everything together, and congratulations on your anniversary and all the attendance that you have and on your event last night. And I have to say that if you've never been to the Children's Museum, it's a treat not only for your children or grandchildren or neighbors or whomever you bring, but also to enjoy as an adult. It's like becoming a kid again. And we've been there many times. We took our grandchildren last time they were here. They can't wait to go back again. And it gives you a chance to really become a child again and go around and touch everything that you weren't able to touch as a child, and know you're not going to get into trouble. And just pop up here and there with the different exhibits. I'm so thrilled that you're going to be bringing back Rocket next year, and hopefully every year, as you say, because when you see those little children watching this screen with this little figure on it, talking to the audience, and then saying, okay, how about the little girl in the pink top? And everybody is astounded that this little figure actually is seeing what the audience consists of and able to communicate with those members, especially at a young age where they're 2 and 3 and 4 years old and need to have the impact of knowing how to be prepared for these emergencies. So you're doing wonderful, noble work, and we're so thrilled to have you as part of our community.
Well, thank you. I've survived 2 summers here, so I feel like I'm really,
You've accomplished a lot
I'm
on
official.
many levels.
But thank you. Please do come. We have a plethora of ideas, as this one will tell you. They try to keep me in check. And we couldn't do anything without the support of the city and without the support of all of the people who have been the trailblazers with me on these new concepts. So thank you again. I've taken up far more than my time. So
Thank you.
Thank you very
from
much,
everybody,
Carolyn.
thank you.
Thank you for your presentation and the good work. We now are going to the non-agenda public comment. This is for items that are not on the agenda for a maximum of 3 minutes, and I would like to call on Alan Worthy. Alan Worthy here?
Sorry, we were congratulating her about the museum and our great friend Betty Barker, who worked so hard. So I'd like to acknowledge our friend Linda Bray. And as Mary Baker Eddy tells us, they have not died, they live, love, labor. I want to thank all of you for all of your support here, and what a day for me to return to the desert. I had no idea. I got here and Mr. Hobart said, I haven't seen you, and what news in your city today? And I said, you mean the Modernism Festival that starts tonight? And he said, no, the indictments. I said, it happened. He said, yeah. He said, don't you live over there? And I said, not anymore. I said, well, that's why I'm here today. I had no idea. I've been in Atlanta with my dear mother, the matriarch of the family, who had a bad fall, and she's come right through it. No, I lost my condo throughout this nightmare, and because it was virtually paid for, the HOA got me on that lien. So it sat there all this time locked up with absolutely no help from that corrupt city. Okay? Now some idiot has got it on a fraudulent quitclaim deed. So, see, this is what has happened. When you've allowed it to go on, namely Mayor Pugnet and the council, and of course the police, well, it just went on and on, resulting in this quitclaim deed. Anyway, that is why I'm here today, to demand the resignation of Palm Springs Police Chief Brian Reyes. I met with Mayor Moon at the end of July before I left the desert, and I laid it out for him. And along with that resignation, I'm demanding the resignation of Sergeant Matt Beard and then Lieutenant, now Captain Wayne Combs. This has gone on, and I'll quote Cathedral City Lieutenant Brian Reyes, the criminal empire, when I asked him how this could possibly go on from one end of the desert to the other, when I was still very fuzzy and hazy and didn't even know where the hell I was at when I first showed up here. And some of you might remember that. It is absolutely inexcusable what has gone on there. I have settled with one of the parties, so I have to be careful of where it started, but it went everywhere. And those criminals are still all on the loose. It is enough is enough. And I am so grateful that this has happened. I cannot wait. I'm staying with some friends in Palm, I shouldn't say where I'm staying. These people have assaulted me and nearly murdered me and threatened to murder me because the Palm Springs police have done nothing. And because, namely, Officer Beckert throwing me against the wall over there one night to prevent me from talking about it. Anyway, I'm in a very grateful, wonderful shock. I was listening to public radio on the way here, and of course it was a press conference with President Trump. And he got to crime. Well, I'll end with this, because my dear mother pegged it, and I said it 2-3 years ago. He talked about crime, Trump, and he said, Chicago, there are two Chicagos, the beautiful Chicago and the crime-ridden Chicago. And I looked at the radio and I said, no, there are three. The Coachella Valley. My mother said, I said, this is like, Mama, this is like the Bronx. Because we're from Atlanta, but we lived in New York City. It's all I could equate it to at that point. And she said Chicago. The per capita crime rate in this desert is inexcusable. So here we have it, the beginning of the end. Again, thank you for having me, and thank you for all of your support. And I will not stop, although I can't end without acknowledging the murders of Officer Vega and that dear woman. I cannot pronounce her name. She's on my wrist here. A friend drove me out to that memorial. But dare I say, that would not have gone on if they had bothered to listen, bother to not promote anybody over there. I said from the beginning, do not promote anyone. 3 years ago, I said that. There's nobody over there I can think of that should be promoted. And Brian Reyes, next in line, that's how out of it David Reddy was, and did not listen to a word I said, and certainly not Doug Holland. And that was the result. Those murders, and I am so grateful I was in LA when it happened. But I knew Officer Vega. He was one of the first of 3 that came to my home after I had been cleaned out. Well, thank you for your support. This is just staggering. This has happened today that I'm back here. And had a very terse conversation yesterday morning with one of those third-party attorneys that would not listen. And I said to him at Starbucks yesterday morning, I said, how dare you sit there and allow it to go on and on when I begged you and Doug Holland and Doug Leaf to put a stop to it. I said, yesterday morning, I said, they'll spend another 2 or 3 years thanks to you. And frankly, because I am from Atlanta, I mean, my God, I said, you know who else is to blame? The Desert Sun. And I told Mark Burton that to his face. I said, you blew us all off for 6 and 8 months telling me no. At that political rally at the airport, the Air Museum, and he and I went to a corner and I named everybody off at the paper who said, no, oh no, it's libel. I said, what law school? What college did you, what school did you go to? It's not libel, it's a fact. It's happened and they're doing it. What are you talking about? You won't publish it. It's not libel. I mean, to be stonewalled by Doug Holland, city attorney, and the newspaper, well, Father, Mother, God, here we have it. So thank you. Thank you so much for all of your support that I feel here. Thank you. I've lost my home. I'm going to get it back. You wait, you watch and see. I will get it back. That's the great thing about fraud. Fraud is fraud. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on a non-agenda? Sandra Johnson, person in charge of our stellar code enforcement department. Sandra?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I just wanted to take an opportunity to introduce a special guest in the audience today. He's a graduate of COD and with an architecture degree. He's now attending Cal Poly Pomona and for a degree in urban planning. We had the pleasure of having him here as an intern for a month, and he's chosen this city to study for how effective great leadership is done in government. So at this time, I want to introduce Gustavo Gomez to come up and say a couple words.
Welcome. You've got a very good mentor over there, I'll tell you that.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Yes, I had the privilege of interning here in the city of Rancho Mirage under Sandra and also along with Public Works. I was fortunate enough to, the experience that I had here, it just, everybody was so helpful. Everybody was very patient with me. I was learning, how the city is run and everything. So I was very impressed by how everybody works so hard, how things are done here. So I decided to choose the city of Rancho Mirage to do one of my city projects. So thank you so much. And I hopefully, I could return again next summer and continue to work with the excellent people here at Rancho Mirage. Thank you.
Well, we welcome you, and we enjoy having people like yourself. Hopefully, when they leave here, be better off and have learned something that they can then take, into society. So welcome, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that has anything to say? Seeing none, I will then go to ask for, unless anyone has corrections or additions to the minutes of February 2nd of the study session, as well as February 2nd of the regular meeting. Are there any changes, additions, corrections? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
Move approval. Motion.
And a second? Please vote. And the motion is approved 5-0. At this point, I will ask our city manager, Randy Binder, to review the consent calendar. Oh, did I leave out the city council comments? How could I do that? I know that we have people just chapping at the bit. Richard?
Chomp, chomp, chomp.
Exactly, exactly.
I don't think my bit with me, but...
Richard had shared with me what his comments were going to be, and as you'll hear in a minute, I said that sounds wonderful as long as you sing them.
La, 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 la. I'm ready. Thank you, Mayor. As we begin the new year, I'm sure we all recognize the tremendous number of events that are going on every day and every night that we're here. And just to look back a little bit, we've certainly had a great event in the Writers Festival. Last night we had a cultural event at the library, which was pretty much sold out. Next week we've got the speaker series, and on and on and on. But I'd really like to spend a couple of minutes just telling you about the Music in the Park series, which we're all so excited about. Staff has really been working, planning, and booking the events for this series. This year is producing a series of 5 performances. The series will kick off this Sunday, and that's why I'm here, to make sure that you all have an opportunity to hear Pam Tillis. She's a great country western star. We are so lucky to have her kick off our series. So she'll be here on Sunday, and then followed by Pablo Cruz on Saturday, February 25th. And then next, Dr. Bad Voodoo Daddy will be here on Sunday, March 5th. I know we all like to see Bad Voodoo Daddy. Then after that, Ted Herman's big band in conjunction with David Green's Musical Theater University on Saturday, March 11th. And then finally ending the season with Starship featuring Mickey Thomas on Sunday, March 26th. Best thing about this program is that everything is free to you. So we invite the public to come out, and gates will open at 5 p.m. Showtime is at 7 p.m. And of course, the location is the Rancho Mirage Community Park Amphitheater, probably one of the best facilities in the whole valley. First come, first serve. I understand that, and that means you've got to get there early because we've got top entertainment every week. So look forward to another great series. Don't forget Sunday, Pam Tillis, and as Dana said, get there early. We welcome you all, and this will be another great year for the music in the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. You were in great voice. Excellent.
La, 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 la.
Very nice.
Dana?
I'm still enthralled.
After you've recovered, do you have any council comments? I assume
No,
none.
no, I don't.
I assume none. Charlie?
No, thank you.
Iris?
I do have a couple of comments because Richard was talking about all the things that are taking place, not only around the valley, but certainly in our city, and it's quite remarkable the programs that we're able to put on here. And most people know my attachment since I got on the Council of Emergency Preparedness. So we have 2 events that are coming up. The first one is going to be on March 1st. It's going to be at our public library, of course, on Highway 111, and it will be a presentation on cyber security by James McFarland. He is a popular national speaker and vice chair of the Emergency Preparedness Commission. If you don't have an opportunity to see him at that event, feel free to tune into Rancho Mirage Television, Channel 17, or you can view it online by clicking onto our ranchomirage.ca.gov and see it online. It would be very, very interesting. One of the things that he imparts very strongly is everyone is subject to being attacked in some way. If you have something that comes up on your computer or your iPad or your iPhone and it doesn't look familiar, Don't open it. It can be very dangerous. It can open up a whole lot of other cans of worms and something you don't want to have happen in your life. The second event is going to be also a town hall forum, and it will be held on March 29th, also at our library, and it will be a presentation about earthquake forecasting and what actions citizens have taken in the past with these forecasts. It will feature Dr. Thomas Jordan of the Southern California Earthquake Center and our own Dr. Dennis Milletti, technical advisor to the Emergency Preparedness Commission. And both of those gentlemen will be giving a whole lot of information on how to prepare yourself for everyday occurrences, and especially if there are emergencies that take place out here in the desert. So both receptions will begin with a champagne reception starting at 5:30, and then the program will start at 6 o'clock. It'll be enjoyable. You'll be able to mill around with some of our commissioners, ask them questions, know that they're dedicated people who want to make everyone in the valley safer. So please put it on your calendar, and we'll be glad to see you all there. And as you can see, it's on the screen, and put it on your calendar, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you, Iris. If there are no other council comments, I will ask our city manager, Randy Biner, to review the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good afternoon. Your consent calendar today has 6 items on it. The first is to waive the full reading of the ordinances that are introduced or adopted pursuant to today's agenda. If you don't approve that, we can have Isaiah Hagerman read each one. Item number 2 on your consent calendar is the final acceptance of the Rancho Mirage Community Park expansion and amphitheater improvements. This is City Project CP 12-284. Item number 3 on your consent calendar is award of contract for citywide rubberized crack sealing, RIAZ as it's called. The crack sealing is in the amount of $187,477 to be issued to the lowest bidder, Rubberized Crack Filler Sealant Incorporated, and staff has budgeted for this. We have checked the license status and references for this contractor, and everything appears to be in order. You know, the crack sealing is an important part of the city's maintenance responsibilities for the streets. The streets are an expensive asset of the city, and the crack sealing occurs in the springtime, and then the slurry sealing, the covering, in the fall. And during that time, because of the temperature that's available, is most ideal, and that extends the life of the asphalt and keeps the city looking nice and protects the assets that we've invested in. So that's item number 3. And the list of streets that are getting the treatment is on page 3-3 if you want to take a look at it. Item number 4 on your consent calendar is appointment of Ellen Ignatius to the Rancho Mirage Community Emergency Preparedness Commission. Councilmember Smotrich is nominating Ms. Ignatius to fill a vacancy on the Emergency Preparedness Commission, and the application was previously given to you for review. Item number 5 are contracts, and item number 6 are demands. And Mr. Mayor, we are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Does council have any questions? No questions. Are there any questions from the audience regarding the consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Please vote. And the motion is approved 5-0. Next item is the CV Link update. Dana?
Well, just a brief mention. You may recall a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, CVAG had applied on behalf of CV Link to the state of California. They have what's called an active transportation program, and they were dispersing quite a bit of money to various organizations for projects that came within the definition of active transportation. And at the time, CVAG received the bulk of that money, about $24,300,000, I think it was. And but before the funds were dispersed, they discovered that there had been an error in CVAG's application. CVAG apparently had forgotten to inform the state that two of the cities, Rancho Mirage and Indian Wells, had dropped out of the program, and therefore the CV Link wasn't a continuous 50 miles or so, as they indicated in their application. So they withdrew, the state withdrew, Caltrans, the sum of money to that had was to be awarded to CVAG for the CV Link project. And that left about $5.5 million roughly in the full program after the first round of disbursements had been made, and CVAG applied for some portion of the $5 million that remains. That's a decision that is pending at the moment. It'll be made around the middle of March by the state, Caltrans. And one of the issues, of course, that they will have to determine, as CVAG is applying for that money as well, is they'll have to determine whether or not CVAG's errors were in fact intentional, one or more of them, and how to deal with it if they make that kind of a determination. I should say that the Riverside County Transportation Commission, through its chair, president, I'm not sure her title, she assured Caltrans that the error was not intentional. And so that's what's part of CVAG's and CV Link's future for this month and next month.
Thank you. Are there additional comments regarding that item from the council?
Yeah,
Yes.
I wanted to ask if Randy could give a report on the draft environmental impact study that has been submitted by CVAG on behalf of CV Link.
Certainly. The CV Link EIR, the draft EIR, has been released for public review, and all comments are due, I think, next Tuesday. What is the date on that? The 21st? 22nd? Staff has been diligently reviewing the draft environmental impact report, and we've got probably over 50 pages so far of comments. There are numerous inconsistencies and omissions in the draft EIR, mischaracterizations of some very critical facts with regards to the city's position on the project. By and large, the project underestimates the impact the project will have on traffic circulation, our neighborhoods, aesthetics, lighting, and overestimates the perceived positive impacts on air quality. But I would like to ask my planning manager to highlight, if he can, a couple of the items that he's found. He's thoroughly reviewing the draft EIR. He's written EIRs in his private sector life and in his public sector life. If any of you know him, he's a very thorough, deliberate person, and he's a great asset to our staff. So, Mr. Mayor, can I have Bud Kopp make a couple of comments?
Absolutely. Bud, if you would, please.
And can I ask you, Bud, if you will explain what the draft environmental impact report is all about and how it fits into the progress or lack of progress of CV Link?
The draft environmental impact report has a proposed project which includes all cities in the Coachella Valley with the exception of Rancho Mirage. There's alternative number 1 in the draft EIR, which is the same except it does not include the city of Indian Wells. The third, or alternative number 2, includes the city of Rancho Mirage. and then there's a no project alternative. And the purpose is to disclose the anticipated impacts of the project and to mitigate those impacts to the greatest extent possible. Now, they are planning to issue a statement of overriding considerations because of noise issues dealing with pile driving, things like that, in the vicinity of Thunderbird Cove here in Rancho Mirage, which would significantly impact quite a few residents in that area and exceed the city's noise standards. As Mr. Binder indicated, the comments are due next Tuesday. And they are, the full draft EIR is on the CVAG website at cvag.org. The draft EIR really reads as a programmatic document instead of a project-specific document. It relies on obtaining future concurrence on various issues, and the proposed alignments identified through Rancho Mirage and Alternative 2 actually go through the city's observatory. And the other alignment that's identified on the south side of Highway 111 does not even acknowledge the fact that the mountain that comes down to Highway 111 at Paxton is less than 10 feet from the edge of curb. That would require some removal of the mountain, obviously, maybe blasting, certainly noise issues, but we found the document to be significantly deficient in analyzing that impact. The operations and maintenance plan is referred to several times throughout the document. In fact, there's mitigation measures mentioning that properly designed and maintained facilities, that's a mitigation measure, properly designed and maintained CV Link. And it also states that operations and maintenance will ensure that the project impacts to local drainage would be less than significant. However, there is no operations and maintenance plan as a part of the document. So we certainly can't conclude that these impacts are mitigated to reasonable extents if the maintenance plan is not even a part of the document. We believe that the section related to the impacts on public services is significantly deficient, and we strongly disagree that there's no impact on public services. There is very little discussion on maintaining acceptable service ratios in the city. The project does not discuss how CV Link roadway will be maintained or patrolled, by emergency services to maintain safety and security along the roadway. And it doesn't describe any type of vehicle constraints or the types of vehicles required to serve or service the roadway. We don't know, if there's an ambulance call on the CV Link roadway, we don't know if an ambulance can access all portions. And as you know, when ambulances are called, oftentimes a fire engine's called as well. There's no description as far as the weight restrictions or that even CV Link can demonstrate adequate turning radius to accommodate these vehicles, or whether vehicles would have to be purchased, new vehicles, to be able to provide these emergency services. We believe that it's reasonably foreseeable that the dominant trend towards highway-capable hybrid and electric vehicles is really where the market is going rather than low-speed neighborhood vehicles. And we think that that deserves fair discussion in the document. No information is disclosed as a baseline in regard to how many vehicle trips would be saved through the increased market share of hybrids and electric vehicles through the year 2040, which is their horizon year. And as Mr. Binder indicated, we believe that the benefits are substantially exaggerated. For example, upon build-out, the miles saved on other roadways with the implementation of CV Link would equal about 31 trips to the moon. And they didn't say to the moon, but if you do the math, it equals 31 trips to the moon. And there is no discussion on how many electric vehicles would be on conventional roadways in the year 2040, and we believe that that's an important part of the discussion because it really means that low-speed electric vehicles could be overstated because of the increased market share in technology with the battery packs improving ranges. And we believe that it's a feasible, reasonable, and viable alternative to study the project without the neighborhood vehicle component. Their draft EIR admits that even without the low-speed electric vehicle component, 70% of the users would be accommodated and most of the goals of the project would be met. And those are some tests that, that CEQA has. And similar to a weather map, weather doesn't stop at the Mexico or Canada border. The termini that they're proposing on either end of Rancho Mirage, when Rancho Mirage is not included in the alternatives, the termini aren't going to deter people from going through the city. In fact, without Rancho Mirage even being included in the project, the growth-inducing impacts of this project will be felt throughout the city. And one example is that the document itself acknowledges that thousands of LSEV trips will continue through Rancho Mirage in violation of our ordinances and become an unmitigated and undue burden to city law enforcement, which they've said has no impact on law enforcement. So these are some of the issues that we have concern about right now, and we really find that it's a difficult project, I'm sure, to write an environmental document for, but we believe that it is substantially inadequate, and we've sourced as much information as we can. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Bud. Are there any other comments? Are there any comments from the public regarding the CV link? Seeing none, I will then go to our public hearings and ask for consideration of the addition of 290 square feet on the second-story loft on Falcon Point. It's being handled by Jeremy Gleim, our senior planner. Jeremy?
And as he's making his way up, Mr. Mayor, just as a reminder, Jeremy passed the American Institute of Certified Planners certification test, so it's Jeremy Gleim, AICP.
Oh, excuse me, I apologize.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. For your consideration is a request to develop a second-story loft at a home which is currently under construction in the Mirada Highlands. The home lies at 51 Falcon Point, which is just up the street here from City Hall, in a custom lot association just beyond the Ritz-Carlton. Some background information on the project. The Planning Commission actually approved this custom home on September 8th, 2016. At that time, the applicant had abandoned their pursuit of the second-story loft, as it was shown in the original plans. And because they had abandoned pursuit of that element, no additional review beyond the Planning Commission was necessary at the time. The idea of the loft was brought up by the project architect during the public hearing, and that prompted the Planning Commission to add a condition of approval, which reads as follows. If the applicant wishes to construct the second-story loft, as shown on the plans, they shall submit a two-story application, pay the two-story single-family permit application fee, and the application will go directly to the City Council for consideration. Said request will not need further review from the Planning Commission if the exterior of the home does not change in relation to the current approval. So that's how we have arrived at this position today. This slide shows the overall layout of the home on the site, and the location of the loft has been shaded in red. As shown on the exhibit at the bottom right of your screen, the stairwell actually occupies nearly half of the loft space, so what you're left with is a somewhat small usable area, probably just enough space for 1 or 2 chairs and a small table. This slide shows views of the surrounding properties from the location of the loft within the site, albeit from the ground level. The closest home to the south, labeled with the letter B, is more than 250 feet away from the loft, and the existing home to the west is just over 70 feet away from the location of the loft. The aerial exhibit shows how a grouping of existing and new trees will be used to maintain privacy for that home to the west. It's a little bit hard to see, but there are some small pink circles on that house labeled as C. Those represent the location of windows on that east elevation. And as you can see, there's a bunch of trees in line in between those windows and the new loft space. So I don't think there would be any issues regarding privacy. The loft space on this slide is shown with a dashed red line at the upper exhibit. This is the front elevation of the home, and this has not changed since the Planning Commission approved this home 5 months ago. So this is what they approved, and this is how it will remain. There are no changes to the elevations of this home. The two sections that are shown below that show the relationship of the loft to the on-site casita and also to the home to the south of this property, which is addressed at 49 Scenic Crest. Now, the rear of the home at 49 Scenic Crest will be visible from the loft space, but again, it is more than 250 feet away from the loft. And additionally, I did have the opportunity to speak to the homeowner there at 49 Scenic Crest. He actually came to the planning counter and reviewed the plans, and he has no oppositions or had no oppositions to what was being proposed. He was fully in support of this request. Aside from that, the Mirada Homeowners Association has fully endorsed the request. I have had no additional contact with any members of the public regarding this proposal. I do understand that a couple people did visit the planning counter to review the plans, but that was just left at that. They came to look at the plans, and that was it. So with that, based upon the content, conditions, and findings in the staff report, along with the Planning Commission's prior approval of the home and endorsement of the loft, staff is recommending that the City Council approve single-family permit case number SFP 16004. That concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jeremy, AICP. Is there any questions of council members? Seeing none, I'll ask the public if they have any questions regarding this item. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion regarding the item, please.
Move adoption of the recommendation.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please vote. And the motion is approved 5-0. Next item is resolution number 2017, and that will be presented by Britt Wilson, our management analyst.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Honorable Council. This matter is the second and last step in the City Council's consideration of the annexation of this development project into the city's Community Facilities District Number 1. The first step was considered and approved by the City Council at your January 19th, 2017 meeting. Territory proposed for annexation is located on the southeast corner of Highway 111 in East Velt in the former Mimi's Restaurant Shopping Center across from the river. On January 19th, the City Council adopted its resolution of intention, which declared your intention to annex the territory to the district, to levy a special tax, to pay for additional police and fire service, and setting the time and place for the public hearing for today's meeting, February 16th, 2017. As detailed in the resolution of intention, the petition filed by the owner allows for a shortening of the time for the special election process to allow for an expedited annexation process. As such, the public, any requirements for notice, analysis, and arguments in connection with the election are waived. And so the election and the results of it can take place at today's meeting. So you will conduct the public hearing, hear the election results from the city clerk, and after that you may consider the attached resolution which calls for the election, the results of the election, determining the validity of the prior proceedings, approving the annexation, and then directing recording of the amendment to the notice of special tax lien. With that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Britt. Are there any questions of the council? Seeing none, I'll ask if the public has any questions regarding this item. Seeing none, I will ask for a motion regarding the resolution number 2017.
Ask the city clerk.
Oh, okay. Do we have the results of the election?
There were one vote in favor and no protests.
Okay, and there are no protests at all.
Correct.
All right. Again, I will ask for a motion regarding the item. And we have a motion on the floor and a second. Please vote.
Motion to accept that the City Council adopt resolution number 2017 in order calling an election on leveling a special tax within the area proposed to be annexed to Community Facilities District Number 1, Annexation Number 168, declaring the election results, approving the annexation of the territory, and directing the reorganization of the amendment of the notice of special tax lien Mirage Sahara Waterfront LLC.
And is there a second? And there's a motion and a second. Please vote on the item. And the motion is approved 5-0. The next item is number 10 on our action calendar, and it's the Community Choice Aggregate Update.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I will be recusing myself from this item due to my husband Tom's and my stock holdings in the Southern California Edison Company.
Thank you. This item will be presented by Isaiah Hagerman, our Director of Administrative Services. Isaiah?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the City Council. This item before you is the second time that we have received a study on a community choice aggregation. And the last study was received by the council in September 2016, and that was our feasibility study. That study was a very high-level analysis of studying if a CCA would work in Rancho Mirage and what would be potential structures in Rancho Mirage. After receiving that study, we authorized the consultant, Good Energy in this case, to move forward with a more in-depth study of really analyzing what would be the realistic participation rates by rate class, what would be the power that we would be providing through the CCA, and what are the costs to provide that power. So before I go too much further into the report that we're going to receive today, just to back up a little bit, Assembly Bill 117 allows a local government to manage the electric supply on a community level. So instead of having Southern California Edison purchase the power for our community, that is something this potential CCA would take over. By doing this, we are able to achieve lower rates than what Southern California Edison charges. So there would be a savings to our residents on their power supply costs. Now, what would happen is Southern California Edison is still the utility. So it's still their poles, still their wires, still their meter readers. Really the only thing that a potential CCA would be doing is securing the power and delivering it through the Edison network. So when residents get bills, it's still going to be from Southern California Edison. It's just going to be power that was purchased by our CCA and electrical rates for power supply that are approved by our CCA, which in this case would be the City Council. Now, an important note here is we do have some areas of our city that are IID. This does not impact IID service territories. Those are primarily Section 19 and Section 30 within our cities. So if you're an IID customer, this doesn't impact you at all. Your rates are already low. You're lucky you're an IID. This only impacts the Southern California Edison service territory. So briefly, before I have the consultants come up, before Good Energy comes up to give the results of the study, essentially, this study took a deeper dive after the feasibility study and really looked at the power supply, how much power would we be supplying through this, and what were the costs. We also took a deeper look at the structure. So really, there's two models out there. You can have a standalone CCA, or you can have a JPA, a Joint Powers Authority. That is where many groups, get together, form a new entity, and it's a broader service area with a broader board. So essentially what this study did is, after we looked at it again, it's still concluding that a Rancho Mirage standalone CCA is the way to go for us. The other model that is out there for us right now is actually a report that CVAG, WRCOG, and Sandbag are all leading together, and they're really focusing on the JPA model. So it was actually really nice for us that we had that study to really be able to compare the direction they were heading under the JPA format and also the direction we were studying under a standalone CCA. So once we get into more of the report, we'll talk a little bit more about what we saw in those two reports and why we're choosing to continue forward with our own standalone CCA. Within the report, can we pull that up? So within our report, there were just a few key pages that I thought had some nice graphs and some nice charts that we could simply look at and maybe get a little bit of a better understanding of what we're trying to accomplish here. So on page 10-11 and 10-12 of the staff report, we've got our proposed structure. So really being a standalone CCA, it is our city council that would control the process. Now, one thing that we have to keep in mind is through this process, your CCA or a CCA providing power to a community is going to make many, many, many choices on behalf of the community. In addition, there's going to be multiple options that the CCA will be faced with. And part of the reason that we're recommending a standalone CCA is it maintains our local control of this process and the costs that we incur during this process. It also allows us to tailor this program specifically to our community's needs. If you're part of a larger JPA organization, you may not be able to tailor your program specifically to your city because it is a much larger, broader service area with many different communities in it. So under this, it would, under the proposed structure, it would operate almost like the Housing Authority Board operates or the Library Board operates. The City Council wears multiple hats now, and it would continue to flow through that. The structure of this is, we have a city manager who is also the Housing Authority Board Executive Director and the Library Board Executive Director. Our city manager would be the Executive Director of this potential Rancho Mirage CCA. So this is how we operate with some of the other entities that we already run now, and what's great about it is it's very efficient. Our process is already set up to wear multiple hats. So to look at this from a graph standpoint, really what we have here is on page 10-12 of the staff report is this simple graph. So this is what we're talking about. So up at the top, you have the Rancho Mirage City Council. They would be the CCA board. So they are the final say on all decisions. They would set the rates, they would approve power purchase contracts, and they would be able to customize this program specific to the needs of Rancho Mirage. Below them, obviously, would be our city manager, who would be the executive director of a potential CCA. And then under there, we would have city staff or additional staff needing to service the CCA, again, all answerable to the city manager and ultimately to the city council. Off to the side here is an important component. That's our consultant right now, Good Energy. So one of the issues that you run into is anytime you take on something new, staff is not versed in power supply. That is not a function that we want to take on. It is a commodity, almost like investments are for the city. So Good Energy's role here, and the reason that they're off of the staff, is there are specialized services that we are going to need to contract for in order to run a CCA. That's what Good Energy does. Good Energy works with many CCAs across the country. They are actively involved with other entities in California that are also exploring this option. And we want to utilize their specialized services instead of doing it in-house with bringing on additional governmental staff. So the private sector can be much more efficient in these areas than governmental staff can. So we are relying on Good Energy in this process to take that specialized function that simply your staff is not versed in. With that, it would work like any other consultant that we bring on in any other process. We would define the parameters, we would define the role, they would be under contract, and they would work with staff in those specialized areas, and we would bring recommendations forward to the City Council, acting as the CCA board to make these decisions. So when we bring on, when we start purchasing power and are picking power providers or other contractors that we need in this process, you know, they would be giving us advice in those specialized areas. At the end of the day, it would all come back to the City Council for the final decision making. On page 10-3 of your staff report, now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this chart, but this is a great summary of this balance that we're trying to achieve. Our goal is not to create another municipal utility that carries high administrative costs. What we want to do is simply take over this one component of the process. That one component is purchasing power. And the purpose of doing this is to save our residents money. So we want to keep our costs low. We don't want to take on unnecessary work with governmental employees. We want to rely on the private sector and companies that specialize in this. Can I bring that back up, please? And so this chart, what it does is it takes the CCA process and it shows you by color who's going to be performing what function within the process. So for the city is the green squares. So there's really three key areas that the city is taking on, and this is really the oversight and decision making of the city. There are some accounting impacts that the finance department will have to bring in. Good Energy is the blue squares. So as our consultant, these are the things that they're going to be recommending to us and doing on our behalf. The electric service providers are the gray squares. So the people that we're purchasing power from, they also have some back office staff that can track some of the data that we need for regulatory reporting. We anticipate having them do that component in addition to the power supply. And then, of course, the yellow is Southern California Edison. So you can see, Southern California Edison, you see them in the billing and the collection sections. So from a resident standpoint, we don't even want them to realize that there's a difference. Obviously, the law says you have required notifications and people can opt out of your program if they want to, but if we can demonstrate that our rates are cheaper, there's probably not very many people that are going to opt out of cheaper rates. But the point of that is showing that from a practicality standpoint, that resident is still going to get a Southern California Edison bill, and they're still going to pay Southern California Edison. So there's no changing of auto payments, there's no getting a new bill, there's no magic switch that happens where now you're going to get a bill from the city. The utility's already set up and doing that. We don't want to take that on at all. So that's still going to stay with Southern California Edison. So this is a simple, easy to look at chart that just simply highlights, hey, what are the roles of the various components that we have here? And then the last page that I'll touch on this is a 10-year analysis of really what are the key cost components of the potential CCA, meaning what are the costs that you have to recoup through your rate structure. So obviously the largest component is the power supply up at the top. The report documents the process that Good Energy used to estimate that process through all rate classes. And then the other key component here that I'm going to touch on is the second one down. It's the utility exit fees. Now, within the beginning, and I think we're estimating about 5 years, those will exist. There are some exit fees that we will have to incorporate into our rate structure. And simply the reasoning behind that is Southern California Edison has purchased power, long-term power commitments, assuming that they were going to need to provide power to Rancho Mirage. So the law says that if we take that away and we take that function over, we have to compensate Southern California Edison for the difference between what that long-term power purchase costs them and what they can get for that on the market. So they then no longer need to purchase so much power, yet they've already entered into these contracts, and they have to dump that power back onto the market. We have to pay the difference in that. So all the savings that we're talking about here includes that component. Those will not be there forever. We're estimating about 5 years where those will be significant amounts, and then after that they drop off significantly. So at the end of the day, when we broke this down, the savings range from 4.3% to 13.7%. So it still looks good. Within these numbers, we are still being very conservative. And the other key component is within our plan, we are recovering our initial startup costs within the first 3 years of operation. So going back to that risk mitigation is as we embark on this process, we are trying to be very risk adverse and not take on unnecessary risks. Well, part of that is how long are you? So under our plan, we are recouping those startup costs within 3 years. That's a way for us to mitigate our risk through this process. In addition, we're not burdening this program with high administrative costs. So that's another way to reduce the risk within this program. So with that, at this point in the presentation, I'm going to ask Good Energy to come on up and they can brief us a little bit more on the report and accept any questions from the council. And after we're done with Good Energy, we'll get to the last component of the staff report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Charles DeCastege, Good Energy, Michael Kagan, and Tom Lay. We're going to go through a quick overview of what's in the report and then field any questions you may have within the document. So with that, I'm going to ask Tom to take us, and then we'll also go through what next steps are so you can actually see where the CCA goes from where it is now until launch and actual flow of power to consumers.
Thanks, Charles, and good afternoon, Mayor, council members, staff. I think Isaiah did a very good job of highlighting the overview. I'll expand a little bit on that, and then we'll be certainly glad to answer any questions. As Isaiah presented, we were here before and presented the results of our initial study. And the reason we sequence the work that way is if we can't get past the initial analysis of what are the open market competitive power costs compared to the equivalent costs that Southern California Edison charges customers, there's really no further reason to investigate. We've seen other programs focus more on building the organization, and the methods that we're bringing here are best practices done in other states. So we cleared that hurdle. We presented that a few months ago, and we were pleased that you were supportive of moving forward. And so this update basically adds the additional operating aspect of it. So the operating costs, startup costs, administrative costs that would be necessary under the method we're proposing, also estimates the level of participation. We do not make assumptions that 100% of the eligible accounts will participate. We tend to be conservative at this point. We have used lower assumed participation rates than we've experienced in other parts of the country, and indeed other CCAs have experienced in northern part of the state. At this point, we think that's prudent. We will sharpen those up as we get closer to the process, but so we've layered in that assumption so we're not over assuming what the revenues of the CCA will be via customer participation after the opt-out period. We've updated the power costs. We've included the aspect of time. Our initial report just looked basically at a snapshot of 1 year. Basically, if we were operating a CCA, what would 1 year of savings be? Those were positive. Now we've expanded that over a 10-year period. So we've included inflationary costs, we've included assumptions or some freeboard in some of our estimates, because 10 years is a very long time to forecast. But the reason we wanted to add the element of time, another thing that we haven't seen emphasized in other approaches, is those costs do change over time, and a lot of the burdens, as Isaiah mentioned, those actually change because there are some expiration of certain bonds associated with the state of California in order to keep the utilities afloat, going back to really 2001, 2002. Those have an expiration on them. And so we've spanned the time period 2018 to 2028, 10-year time period. So at this time, we're estimating that the program would begin to operate, should we get that far, in 2018, and we've looked at costs that way. And the estimates of savings vary. They vary by the rate class and the type of customer. And again, this is state-of-the-art practice. Rather than say your community is saving X percent and not dig into the detail of what is the supermarket saving versus the residential customer versus the small industrial customer. So we've broken in to those aspects, and we've spread it over time. And as I mentioned, a lot of the costs, particularly the cost burdens, do expire. Or they will change, and they're also subject to regulatory change. So we've tried to apply an ounce of caution and make sure that we're being conservative in our estimates, and we're also demonstrating how once we make the initial investment to launch the program, get it running, go through a public education process, which is a very important aspect of future activities, because this is a process that is not existing currently. You're not just replacing one vendor with another. You're launching a program that for many of your residents and businesses and other organizations that are electric consumers, those are, this is going to be a new process, so they're going to need a thorough educational process, public information, access to background, and certainly many will want to do their own research, and so that we've included, you know, all of those aspects here. And we heard loud and clearly in our conversations with staff and with you all that the primary objective you wanted to achieve in a prospective program was to achieve savings for the users, not to use it for other investments and other objectives. And so, as Isaiah mentioned, that's how we've structured it. That's consistent with the way we operate programs, the more than 200 that we manage throughout the United States. Those are very consistent objectives. Very often individual communities may want to have certain customer optional programs, and those are certainly things that we can build in, but ultimately the objective from day one is to reduce costs and to manage cost volatility. We know that the generation charges that Southern California Edison applies to the power supply portion of the bill, those change every year. They change without notice. There is no way to forecast future changes, and so a CCA, in addition to achieving cost savings year in, year out as being an objective, but also to manage volatility. We are in an era of low energy prices in our country, and there are a number of reasons for that. but between the three of us, we've been in the power supply business for probably a combined 50, 60, that's probably an underestimate, number of years, looking at Michael. So clearly protecting residents against volatility. These are instruments that are available in the marketplace. The utility does not offer them. It is not mandated by the state to offer them, but the alternative supply market that underlies operation of a CCA does offer those programs and those products and services. And we, in future phases, would do thorough analysis and come back to you with the risk and reward of fixing prices for longer periods of time than is offered by the utilities. Some of the different users of electricity are willing to accept more risk in the commercial sector in exchange for a greater savings opportunity, because it's very important to the bottom line of their business. Residential customers and very small businesses are typically more interested in predictability and budget management and protecting themselves against long-term unexpected price rises. And so these are all the kind of flavors that we can add that aren't available from Southern California Edison. That's why we've included the 10-year forecast, so we can add that element of time to your thinking about how we might go forward with the program. I just want to stress again, as Isaiah touched on, Rancho Mirage, the City Council and its designees, staff and others, retain full decision-making authority on any of the fundamental aspects of the program. The power purchases, which are certainly the biggest dollar amount items, we would do thorough analyses and have a recommendation, just as any advisor to you in other aspects. Other industries would advise you, but certainly the final decision is yours. The rates that citizens and businesses are charged, and various strategies for stabilizing rates over time, as I mentioned, or changing rates at appropriate times, and explaining that, first of all, giving adequate notice ahead of time to participants, different from the way Edison is mandated to operate, and also explaining the reasons for increases or for opportunities that we see in the market that we would recommend taking action to further take advantage of opportunities, particularly during times of low or dips in forward energy prices. Those certainly occur. Energy prices, future energy prices on the open market change every day. So these are important things to take into consideration for your citizens. And a big part, as I mentioned earlier, of operating the program is explaining to the participants how things work. That builds success and support and participation in the program much more than anything else has been our experience. The promotional material, the public information material, and customer notices, which right now you have basically from Southern California Edison no input on. You retain final review and approval of all the materials that your customers would see, your participants, your constituents, website materials, mailings that go out, social media, other platforms that we might use to access. You control that message, what gets emphasized, and then you always have the support of our staff or others to explain that and provide additional information. This will be a very, should we get that far, eye-opening experience. We found in other communities that have not experienced customer choice in the past, when they've got someone they can talk to, when they've got materials that they can read, and then someone can support them with questions, it's very gratifying to see that happen in a community. So our next steps going forward, should you authorize it in what's in front of you for an action item today, will be to move ahead with engaging the other entities, the other components, many of which are required by law and regulation. As Isaiah mentioned, the utility is still a major factor in the operation of a CCA and delivering and metering the power, so we would engage them. This involves quite a bit of financial information, how money is exchanged, data is exchanged. It's a very technical aspect, so we would move forward with that. And ultimately, all CCAs do need to have their implementation plans reviewed and approved by the California Public Utilities Commission. So we would move toward preparing a draft implementation plan, which this council would see, review, have explained to them after going through staff and committee process before that goes ultimately to the commission and becomes a public document. So those are kind of our overview comments, and I'll turn it over to you, Charles, if you'd like to say anything, or Michael, and we'd certainly be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Does council have any comments? Any questions?
I do. Is the bottom line that for us to do this for our residents or businesses, this is a leading question, is it always that they will always be under with this program, under the radar of the Edison company? In other words, will it always be 1%, 2%, or 3% cheaper if we do this program? Leading question.
I'll lead off on that, and then if you guys feel like you need to follow up. So really, on the residential side, it's rather simple. When you get onto the commercial side, it is extremely complicated. And so many factors will play into what an individual saves. Obviously, the largest one is going to be how much they consume. So what we will have control of is the costs, which determine the rates that we need to charge to recover those costs. The impact of those rates will vary by individual customer because of the nature of their individual usage and the type of rate structure that they are in currently. So we would not come in and say every person is going to save X percent on their utility bill. What we would control is the rate structure, which then would, obviously if we're supplying a cheaper rate structure, then they would be able to determine the savings themselves. So part of this public outreach campaign that the city would have to embark on is one of the methods of doing that would be creating a section on the city's website where we would put in our proposed rate structure, and individuals or businesses would go to this section of the website and could plug in their current power consumption from their current bills and have a comparison on an individualized basis. So we would set the rates and set the rate structure. Obviously, if your rate structure is not lower than Southern California Edison, no one's going to participate in your program. So our rate structure will be lower, but we cannot guarantee X percentages for every person because there are many factors that play into that.
Does council have any other questions? Richard?
Ted, yes, just one brief question was raised when we were in our subcommittee meetings regarding the source of power, and where would you anticipate that the purchases would be made from? Are we doing purchases on the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, or can you go into that a little bit?
Sure. Generally, when we see power prices, that's for power that is sourced from the grid, and actually the subcomponent of the grid, referred to in this case as SP15, the zone within the California transmission system. The state requires a certain amount of renewable energy for all users. That's not optional. All of the forecasts that we've built in here, based upon direction from staff, is that it meets those state mandates, does not, in the base load power, the base program, exceed that. So these would be sourced from the grid, which is going to be a combined range of sources that fall onto the grid. The way a system operates is generators put, whether it's fueled by sunlight or whether it's fueled by natural gas or whether it's fueled by other sources. It all ends up, the law of physics is the same everywhere in the universe, so it all ends up on the grid and it's extracted from the grid. So we're going to see a mix of generation, most of which comes from within the state, I would say, and we can get that data from the California Independent System Operator, but not necessarily all. When we see programs start to be more discrete in what they're sourcing from the grid, well, we only want it in the state, or we only want it in Southern California, or we only want it from our community, this tends to drive up costs because you're sourcing from a smaller market. That's, renewable energy is changing that dynamic a little bit, but it's pretty much going to reflect the power that's generated in the region, most of which comes from California, but not necessarily all.
Thank you.
Isaiah, do you want to have any concluding comments of any kind?
Sure. Are there, before we move on with the presentation, are there any other questions for Good Energy?
Yeah, the public talk.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys can sit down. I don't want to make you stand there the whole time. So after all this, we've been routing this through the Budget Subcommittee, which consists of Councilmember Hobart and Councilmember Kite. And I would like to say thank you guys. There's been many meetings, and this is not a very exciting topic. So thank you guys for everything that you've done through the process. And really, when we got this most recent report and we kind of were digesting our report and the CVAG report, we were cautiously optimistic about this process. So we are going into it with our eyes open. We are trying to mitigate the risks that we can during this process because at the end of the day, there is great potential for this program. If we can help our residents by lowering their energy costs, I think that would be a great thing to do for our community given our climate and the significant bills that we all face every month. Within that, the subcommittee and staff really did believe that there was a good opportunity here, so we are recommending to the council that we move forward with the next phase as Good Energy described. And at the same time, because we had the advantage of really two approaches, we were able to look at the CVAG, WRCOG, Sandbag, JPA approach, which was actually two different models. They said, what's it look like if that JPA is one big JPA over that entire service area? So this would be a massive organization covering every city and unincorporated area in San Bernardino and Riverside counties. So you can imagine the scope and size of this thing. Obviously, communities would have to opt into that process, but the intent would be to form a JPA over that large of a service area. So you're talking about a huge organization. Also within that same report, they also studied if the three COGs were their own JPAs for the areas that they cover. So you got to see the really big, massive JPA, and then you got to also see a picture. So the relevant component for us is obviously the CVAG. So they took the eligible CVAG members. So that eliminated about half of CVAG because half of CVAG is covered by IID, and the other half is obviously Southern California Edison. So at the end of the day, kind of comparing our two models, we really came to a decision that we felt it was appropriate at this time, given the information we had on our plan and given the information that CVAG put together with their plan, that we felt like we were heading in the right direction by doing a standalone CCA. Riverside County, for the unincorporated areas, is also along the same path that we are. So being able to see the two reports was very helpful in our process, but where we feel like we are at now is we feel like we're heading in the right direction with our own standalone CCA. And I'm going to get into just a few of the highlights of really the big ticket items that we picked out that seem to be the core differences between the two approaches. But at this time, it's would be probably unfair to the remaining CVAG jurisdictions if in the future they continued to use Rancho Mirage data. If we know at this point we're ready to move on and do our own thing. So really for their process, I think it benefits them at this point for us to tell CVAG or to have the city manager tell CVAG that, hey, thanks for including us, but in the future, we're going to be doing our own thing based on the information we have at this point. And what that will allow CVAG to do is give an accurate picture of the participants or potential participants within their service area that they're looking at. So their data won't include Rancho Mirage usage and Rancho Mirage meters if we know at this point we're heading off on our own direction. It'll allow the other cities that are still exploring that option to see a true and accurate reflection of what that CCA looks like without Rancho Mirage, since we now know that we feel like we're heading in the right direction with our report. So in the staff report on page 10-3 and 10-4, we summarized just some of the high-level key things here. And you know, when you're going through this process, sometimes it's hard to compare apples to apples. But these were the three major things that we picked out that kind of we're basing our decision off of to really say, yeah, we think we're heading in the right direction with our own standalone CCA. So within the TRICOG report, the CVAG report, there is with a large JPA, one of the disadvantages of that is they usually carry higher administrative costs because it's a much larger entity. So within their report, between April and June of this year, it was recommending if they move forward with the TRICOG JPA, issuing a $20 million bond in that April to June timeframe. And they were estimating that to be 5.5%, and the repayment of that initial bond would be over a 5-year period. And then in early 2018, they were going to issue another $175 million in debt, and that was going to be repaid over a 20-year period. So that was for the TRICOG. That was that big entity covering all three COGs. And then they also gave numbers if CVAG did it on their own. They were recommending on page 53 that $5 million in debt be issued for the standalone CVAG JPA, and then in early 2018 another $35 million in debt that would be repaid over that 20-year period. So our concern with that is really, you know, under either approach, it's the longer you are, the more risk that you're taking on. So to assume for the next 20 years that you're always going to be the lowest in energy supply, we felt like was just too much risk. So they're issuing this debt in the front to cover startup costs, and then they're spreading that repayment of that debt over the next 20 years. So essentially they're saying we're going to be successful for 20 years because that's how they're pledging the debt. Under our plan, we're recouping those startup costs within the first 3 years of our operation. So the shorter we were, the less risk we were taking on. So that was one key component of that. The next one was the amount of staff that they were having to bring on for an entity this large. So under the two proposals, under the TRICOG proposal, they were recommending the hiring of 20 staff members at a cost of just under $2.5 million. That was page 44 of the report. And then if CVAG were to be its own JPA, it was still requiring 9 staff at a cost of just under $1.2 million a year. So we felt like that was another area that concerned us. Basically, high staffing levels and overhead and fixed costs create more risk and provide less flexibility to changing circumstances. Kind of as we've moved through our process, we've wanted to explore different options to keep those administrative costs low by outsourcing to the private sector instead of broadening the scope of government. And really the third major item was the format itself. So either under TRICOG or the CVAG standalone approach, those are both JPAs. And you're meshing a very large service area that is very different. I mean, even if you just took Rancho Mirage and say Cathedral City, these two communities are very different. The needs of those communities are very different. You know, what you could potentially do with these programs, you know, you could designate an area of your city that you want to incentivize business to move in, and you could artificially lower rates within that area of your city as a way to get businesses into your city. Well, the way that looks in Cathedral City versus maybe Rancho Mirage, you would have two totally different goals of a CCA, yet on a JPA, you would be forced to make those goals common across just those two communities. Again, under the CVAG approach, it would obviously be a larger service area than that, but that's just one of the aspects that you lose when you let go of local control, is you lose the ability to tailor the programs to these individual communities. In addition, you know, if we felt strongly, we being Rancho Mirage felt strongly about something, you know, we're one vote on a big board. So smaller communities like ours sometimes aren't well represented on these JPAs because we're exactly that. We're a smaller community, and most of the time the larger communities will dominate a JPA format. When you establish this JPA, basically every decision that we have to make that will directly impact our residents, it's going to be done by a board that is primarily not from our community. So under the standalone approach, it's our city council. You know, it's our residents are directly electing our city council, and you're not having these outside elected officials make the decisions for our community. In addition, you know, the monies flowing through the CCA would be returned to the JPA and not the local community. So for all those reasons, we kind of felt like at this point it was appropriate to notify CVAG that we no longer wanted to participate in their process, and that's why we have recommendation number 3. I also think it's in the best interest of the CVAG process so that the other communities that are relying on that study don't have Rancho Mirage data included in there when we know that we're heading off and doing our own standalone CCA. So at that point, there are 3 recommendations which are identified on page 1-1 of the staff report, and I would be happy to answer any additional questions.
Your microphone's not on.
If there are no other questions, I'd ask Erica Felci from CVAG, Coachella Valley Association of Governments, to give us her views on the subject.
Mayor, thank you for having me. Honorable council members, city staff, and residents, my name is Erica Felci, and I'm the Governmental Projects Manager for the Coachella Valley Association of Governments. Our staff has reviewed the report prepared for today's CCA discussion, and I'm submitting a letter for the record. It's a bit long. I'm a writer in my former life, so I'll only highlight a few points. In April, the CVAG Executive Committee voted to explore a CCA program. The feasibility study was developed in partnership with the Western Riverside Council of Governments and the San Bernardino Council of Governments. A draft of the study was released last fall, and a final version will be presented to the CVAG Executive Committee on February 27th. The Inland Choice Power Community Choice Aggregation Business Plan looks at a variety of alternatives, including creating separate CCAs for each jurisdiction or options for creating larger regional CCAs that involve our respective jurisdictions. Although the city was pursuing its own CCA study, we received direction from city staff to continue to include Rancho Mirage in our analysis. The feasibility study is an analysis of whether CCA could benefit electricity customers in our region and not a commitment for participation by any jurisdiction. It's a presentation of scenarios. All the options have advantages and they have their challenges. Certainly, one of the biggest benefits to a CCA that covers a larger geographic region is the ability to share costs and limits the risks to any particular city. It's worth noting that several of the existing and successful CCAs in California, including Sonoma Clean Power, use a regional approach. The formation of a CCA with CVAG would also result in net savings to consumers, an increased use of renewable energy, economic benefits, and reductions in greenhouse gases. The feasibility study indicates the potential for consumer cost savings, which is the driving force behind our effort. We're now working with WRCOG to release a request for proposals to obtain bids and cost estimates for the various tasks needed to operate a CCA. CVAG is fully aware of and respects the City Council's decision to pursue a CCA on its own instead of partnering with neighboring communities. Several past CVAG staff reports on our own CCA process have made note of the city's plans and have also noted CVAG's intent to continue to communicate and cooperate with the city. I've heard from other member jurisdictions that they fully respect your ability to make choices on behalf of your residents. However, I've also heard from our members a growing frustration that the city does not have a mutual respect for the decisions that elected leaders in other cities and at CVAG are making. CVAG has not commented on the city study or your decision process. We only seek to clear up the misconceptions that could be reached by today's report. Descriptions such as massive, 20-year bet, huge amount of risks, and burdened with high administrative costs don't contribute to an informed public discussion or advance any conversation. They seem to only be included to disparage CVAG and other cities that are considering this approach. CVAG has not asked our cities to make any financial commitment, issue any bonds, or take on any debt. Until it is determined what geographic area a CVAG-involved CCA would cover, it's premature to know with certainty what the startup costs are. At the point that CVAG Executive Committee decides to launch a CCA, CVAG staff will be diligent about negotiating any costs and any rates. A larger CCA, however, would allow for any costs to be shared over multiple jurisdictions. Our regional study identifies the potential to provide electric for over 960,000 customers, representing about 30% of Southern California Edison's total current electric loads. The costs of both the feasibility and implementation studies were shared between our three councils of governments. While the CVAG Executive Committee authorized us to spend up to $75,000, we've only spent $24,000. By comparison, the City Council today is being asked to authorize another $75,000 with a CCA that's projected to reach just about 14,000 accounts. In conclusion, I note that CVAG has on many occasions expressed its desire to have a productive and collaborative relationship with the City of Rancho Mirage. It would be unfortunate to see the Council's opposition to an unrelated transportation project limit our abilities to work together on other important endeavors, including CCAs. We anticipate that there could be opportunities for collaboration, including power purchasing. If you or the rest of the Council would like additional details, CVAG staff is prepared to come back and make a presentation on our efforts. Thank you for your time.
I would merely like to say, Ms. Felci, that any conclusions or any analysis that our staff has made is strictly by and between for the benefit of our city, the City of Rancho Mirage. There is no intention for us to have any influence over any other city. That's their individual decision. That's an analysis that they have to do for themselves. Any comments that we make are, frankly, for the benefit of our council, to give ourselves all of the facts to make a learned decision. In no way is it intended to influence or to suggest that any other city should not make the very best decision for themselves. Dana?
One of the concerns I have for why I would prefer the city to CVAG is CVAG was created as a joint powers agency back in the 70s, I think. And as a joint powers agency, all of the cities that joined then, and some have been added since then, it was for one purpose and one purpose only. The Joint Powers Authority was to deal with transportation issues. That was it. And cutting to the chase, that one subject has brought us the CV Link. Now, Ms. Felci says we shouldn't be reacting on the basis of our views of the CV Link, but we can't help but look at what CVAG has done with respect to the CV Link and how it has treated Rancho Mirage. I point out that for the longest period of time, probably around 2 years, maybe a little longer, the city of Rancho Mirage offered CVAG a road to use for implementing the CV Link project, Ramon Road, and we were just absolutely snubbed for that because we didn't want it to go down our main street. CVAG said, we will go down your main street, and that's it, period. It was the Highway 111 is what I'm referring to, but there are some other streets as well. But Highway 111. And they did. Their environmental report was essentially the route that they said they would take over us. The route that we suggested was appropriate for our city's well-being. CVAG is also becoming an empire. CVAG, as I said, was initially created to assist with transportation issues. Now, since then, in just recent times, we have a new project, this pathway of some sort called CV Link, without CVAG ever asking for the cities, giving the cities, back in the early days when this was being promulgated in the minds of some, but never really essentially stated to anybody, they never came to the cities and said, here's the project that we're thinking about for the future. We think it has great potential, great advantages, whatever they think, and we would like each city to consider it and vote, and hopefully we can put together all of the cities and have this combination bikeway, walkway, and then the 14 feet for the electric vehicles way. If we had all had a chance to discuss that and vote on it at some early time, even the council voting on it with their encouragement, that would be one thing. It never happened, and as a consequence of our opposition by the city of Rancho Mirage to the CV Link, we have taken slurs and nasty comments and been vilified in a variety of ways. But we have maintained our path. But when I said that CVAG is creating some kind of an empire on its own, not only do they handle the transportation issues that they were supposed to handle, and that doesn't mean every transportation issue, the ones that the cities agreed that they were going to handle. We have the CV Link as a whole new project without public participation by Rancho Mirage, either the council or the voters, until we forced that just recently. They've got a new program where they are initiating, it hasn't come to the point yet where I see an implementation agreement, which means, let me just back up. When I use the word implementation agreement, and it's an important word and it's an important concept for people to understand. An implementation agreement is where the CVAG cities all agree, as they did in the beginning, all agree to have one organization created where we give the power that the city has to the organization. We cede, C-E-D-E, we cede it all to the organization that we create because we see advantages of one organization, managing the entire project. But once you've granted them that power, you can't get it back. That organization exists forever or until they decide that they don't want to exist any longer. Like in CVAG's CV Link is one of the results why we're not voting on it. They claim that's within their original authority. Roadway signalization. City of Rancho Mirage spent about $600,000 to $700,000 purchasing controlling rights over Highway 111 through our city. from the state. We have spent up to $600,000 or so in getting our signals signalized so that transportation through the city on the streets that we control move expeditiously. Now, CVAG is creating a program. It hasn't been announced or hasn't been disseminated, although it has been discussed publicly in CVAG meetings, two or three of them. They want to take over the signalization of the entire valley. Now, picture yourself at a signal that's not working. Here, you can call City Hall and you can have it remedied quickly. Imagine if CVAG was in charge of all of the signals on the regional roads, at least, throughout the valley, and you have a problem. Well, they'll get to it, but you've got Palm Desert, La Quinta, somebody else, they've got problems too. We have to take them in order. We don't want, and we will not support Rancho Mirage signalization being turned over to CVAG. Just another effort to make it a bigger, more powerful organization. It wasn't too many years ago, I guess it was about 9 or 10 years ago, that CVAG took over the homeless committee project for some large part of the valley, where I think something like 8 or 9 cities back in that era, 10 years, say 9 or 10 years ago, where each of the cities agreed that they would pay, I think it was something like $103,000 a year to CVAG to manage a homeless program that resulted in, I'm not sure which monies were used for it, but the homeless shelter, the, what's the name of it?
Roy's Homeless Shelter.
Yeah, Roy's Homeless Shelter over in North Palm Springs. And so here all of these cities agreed to this big project. And at the present time, you know how many of them are still paying the $103,000? 3. Everybody else dropped out. Well, we can't afford it any longer. And so they dropped out. I think a 4th city may pay a little bit. But 3 cities are paying the $103,000. Palm Springs, Palm Desert, and Rancho Mirage. We've kept our promise. But that's a program, it's another program taken over by CVAG. I personally just think that CVAG is out of control. It's Tom Kirk knows no more about the community aggregation issues than probably any member of any of the city councils. I know he'll hire people, and that's what he would have to do, but that's all part of the expense. It would be an expensive project from our perspective, but it would also build this empire known as CVAG. I can tell you that Rancho Mirage, which has been opposed to CV Link, I can tell you what it's like to sit on the executive committee and talk about something, and you know nobody's listening or paying serious attention, or very, very few, I should say. Some do. It is not a good way to be treated. It's rude, a lot of rudeness over the last year and a half or so that I've been there. And I just don't think CVAG has earned our trust sufficient to justify our city being part of this project. Plus the fact that the project, our interests are better served, not being part of the big mammoth energy company that CVAG wants to participate in, along with some other, with Western County and San Bernardino County. But anyway, I support the motion, and I vigorously suggest that anybody who thinks that CVAG is operating in an open manner sufficient for democratic purposes, come come to the CVAG meetings. They don't have very many of them of the executive committee, but you call our city hall, we'll tell you when the next one is. Actually, I think it's the last Monday of this month is the next one. At any rate, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to state some things that have been on my chest.
Thank you, Dana. I will offer Ms. Felci, if you care to return or say anything, you're more than welcome. No, so? Okay, are there any other comments? Yes, Isaiah?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, excuse me.
Comment,
Yes,
please?
Richard.
Yeah, I've been with us on the city council for almost 17 years, and I think the decision we make here today is probably as an important decision as any of us will make with the city, and it will have an impact on our residents far into the future. So I think it's really important that we continue to work on the issue, look at the various alternatives, and come up with something that is really in the best interest of our residents. I think on page 10-2, there's a statement there that pretty much sums up all of the thoughts I have about the particular project. And it says the primary goal of a potential Rancho Mirage CCA is to save residents money, not to create a municipal utility burdened with high administrative cost. And the City of Rancho Mirage CCA has the potential to be another area where the City Council can positively impact our residents and business community. And that's why we're all here. We want to have a positive impact on our residents and our commercial businesses. So I support the recommendation, the motion as Dana stated, and he and I will continue to work with the staff to make sure that we get all the information and that we're able to make that decision and impact our residents in a very positive manner. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you, Richard. Obviously, this is a very exciting project, and if it comes to fruition, it would be a great benefit to our community and our residents. Isaiah, did you have some concluding comments?
Yeah, I just was going to summarize quickly the process that we've gone through with CVAG. We were a participant with the CVAG process, and we've been exchanging information back and forth. Between CVAG staff, we've been showing up to the CVAG committee meetings when this is on the agendas, and we've actually been abstaining on the motions when this comes through, unless it was a receive and file. Of course, our elected official voted to receive and file their reports, but we've been abstaining and just stating for the record that we're also exploring our own standalone CCA. And it wasn't until we really had time to digest these two reports and these two different approaches that we came up with this recommendation. So can we pull up the website really quick? So right here, as part of this ongoing communication that the city's had with CVAG, if you go to the CVAG homepage, you'll see our feasibility study right here on their homepage. That's because we provided it to them in an effort to get our process to them as well. So there has been much dialogue back and forth at the staff level of really, this is still very new for people, and it just seems like at this point it's two very different approaches. So, I'm not surprised the JPA out there, CVAG, is wanting to expand the scope. For the city, we outlined the reasons in our staff report why we're making the decision we are today to remove from that process. So that for the official record, and we reference page numbers from the CVAG report, there are also other entities in Riverside County that are saying the same thing we are. So the lines of communication has been open both ways, and the staff report and the findings in it are accurate. You can go look at the CVAG report yourself where those items are mentioned. It's all referenced by page number. And at the end of the day, I concur with the budget subcommittee, and I thank you for all your time and effort on this topic.
Can I ask you one question, Isaiah? Is the unincorporated county part of the CVAG grouping? Are they, did I hear somewhere that they were trying to establish a similar situation as we are establishing?
Yeah, they're actually using the same consultant we are, Good Energy, and they are moving forward with their own standalone CCA, just as Rancho Mirage is.
They could be part of CVAG because their land is in the CVAG jurisdiction, is it not?
Yeah, they would actually, because you're only dealing with the unincorporated areas, so they would be split between WRCOG and CVAG. Their service area would, but they have also been very vocal through this process, and they have their feasibility study on the CVAG webpage as well. They've been communicating with CVAG throughout this process as well, but they approved another action to form their own program just as we have. And, you know, there are plenty of opportunities. Obviously, the biggest benefit to a JPA is you're buying more power, so you get economies of scale on your power purchases. But if that was the only factor that mattered, no one would ever be able to beat Southern California Edison. They have the monopoly on how much power they're purchasing. They're purchasing the most. So if that's the only thing that mattered in this process, you would never be able to beat the utility. But we can, so there are other factors that play into this program. And there are plenty of opportunities later down the road for two independent CCAs to work together on power purchasing to achieve those economies of scale. We truly believe that that will be a likely outcome of more CCAs in the Southern California area, is joining together where it matters on the power purchase. You don't have to partner on every decision that a CCA makes. So you could go to service providers and say, hey, you know, this CCA is 5 units of power and we're 3 units of power, and we're willing to give it all to one provider. Will you quote us together? And it's still separate contracts. You still do your own thing. You still have your own structure, but it's a way to achieve some economies of scale on the power purchase side, yet still have your own independent CCA. And there's many potentials out here. You know, future CCAs, depending on how well this works and where commodity prices are, you know, there's even opportunities for CCAs to get together to fund local facilities. So, you know, building a solar plant out here in the Coachella Valley, promoting local economy, local jobs, and local growth. If you have many CCAs that are willing to partner on that stuff, those are all possibilities down the road. And we're not eliminating those possibilities by backing out of this process. All we're saying is we believe it's better for us, for Rancho Mirage, our residents, and our business community, for those decisions to be made by our city council, which are directly elected by our residents, rather than outside elected officials that have no vested interest in our city. We saw how well that worked during the CV Link discussion.
Well, well expressed. Any other council comments? I'll ask one last time if there are any other comments from the audience. Seeing none, I will close
Can I make
again.
the motion?
Pardon me?
Can I make the motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. I would move that the council receive and file the program structure and design development report. I would also move that the council authorize the city manager and city attorney to execute a contract with Good Energy for the purpose of continuing to study a Rancho Mirage community choice aggregation in an amount not to exceed $75,000, and to direct the city manager to inform the Coachella Valley Association of Governments, CVAG, that the city of Rancho Mirage will not be joining the CVAG Western Riverside Council of Governments, WRCOG, and San Bernardino Associated Governments, SANBAG, their CCA efforts. Further, Rancho Mirage has no desire to be associated with or participate in their CCA effort, which calls for the issuance of $195 million in debt, or $40 million in debt if CVAG proceeds without WRCOG and SANBAG, to be repaid over the next 20 years.
I'll second that. Please vote. And the motion is approved 4-0. There's one abstention. Councilmember Smotrich has recused herself. The next item will again be the consideration of the medical insurance billing program for ambulance services. And Isaiah Hagerman, if your voice is still holding up, would you please handle that?
You recommending a JPA on this, Isaiah?
No. I'll wait for Councilmember Smotrich to return.
Somebody getting it?
Yes. Mark. Gustavo, do you have enough information for your city planning class? Good.
Okay, Isaiah, do you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. The item before you is the consideration to establish a medical insurance billing program for ambulance services within the City of Rancho Mirage. So to give some background on this topic before we dive into the details, when we approved our current budget that we're operating in June of 2016, the council spent a significant amount of time focusing on public safety costs, so our police and fire costs, and the increases we are seeing in those costs year after year. We put together a 5-year analysis, and essentially that analysis concluded with the current increases that we're seeing. If those continue into the future, the city should expect to pay about $1 million more the next year for that same level of service. So these aren't service increases, it's just to keep what you had the year before, it's about $1 million more. So as we trended that out over 5 years, it was a very significant hurdle and is still on the city's radar as far as fiscally, how do we handle another $1 million a year every year just to keep what we had the year before, and potential increases in the future as far as level of service would be on top of that. So as part of the budget approval, the City Council directed staff to work with the Budget Subcommittee to find cost recovery methods that do not increase taxes on residents. So as part of that process, staff started working with the Budget Subcommittee to determine different scenarios and different approaches that we could achieve that goal of cost recovery without increasing taxes or fees or any out-of-pocket from our residents. And really the development of that is what we're here to discuss today. What floated to the top of our list, which seemed like the most practical thing for us to do, is this medical insurance billing program. So what this program would do is we would hire a billing company that when somebody is transported in an ambulance by one of our ambulances, we would bill their insurance company only. So the easy example of that is Medicare. Medicare will reimburse, the Medicare minimum is $400 per ambulance ride. So the city can recover $400 for every ambulance ride just by billing Medicare with no out-of-pocket costs from our residents. So whatever insurance doesn't cover, we waive the rest. So a resident will never come out of pocket for an ambulance ride. We only want the money that the insurance companies are willing to reimburse to the city for this service. So as we move through this process, we will continue to work with the Budget Subcommittee to refine the program and the guidelines, but the underlying principle of this program is a resident will never come out of pocket for an ambulance ride. It still remains at no cost to them. We understand the taxes that they pay and for that service, and we're not going after the residents' money. We only want to bill the insurance companies and get the money the insurance companies will pay us. The fact that we're not billing insurance companies now, our residents aren't seeing a break in their medical premiums because of that. So if these insurance companies are willing to reimburse part of our costs, we want to start collecting that, and this medical billing program will accomplish just that. So, if someone has beyond the Medicare minimum, if someone has a nicer plan and that nicer plan gives us $700 instead of $400, that's great. We'll take that. Everything else will be waived. If somebody is in our city and takes one of our ambulances and has no insurance, then obviously there's nobody for us to bill, and that person will have no out-of-pocket costs. It will continue to operate. Our ambulance services will continue to operate as they do now. This program would simply take the next step in sending the bill to the insurance company so that we can collect the money that the insurance company is willing to pay only, so there's no out-of-pocket costs to our residents. We've been working through this with our Cove cities, so with Palm Desert and Indian Wells, and our CAL FIRE folks to get their input through this process. And where we're at today is the City of Rancho Mirage and the City of Indian Wells are moving forward at the same pace, and we have determined that this provider, Novato, is also going to be the potential provider under the Indian Wells plan. It's going to their council today for consideration. So from the fire side, from CAL FIRE side, they actually have experience working with Novato Fire District for ambulance billing. So they know that their programs and their IT infrastructure can talk to Novato, and that was a big component of it. From the CAL FIRE side, there's no impact to their service or additional cost to the city, because CAL FIRE is already doing the necessary paperwork to generate the bill. It's just we've never had the step to send that to a biller to bill the insurance company. So that's the component that this program would potentially add today, is the paperwork that CAL FIRE is already doing would then go to this billing provider who would send the bills to the insurance companies only. Once they're paid by the insurance company, we have a lockbox system where it would go to our bank and the money would go directly into our account. The billing company never gets access to our money, never receives our money, never receives the payment. It goes directly into the city's bank. What the billing company does have the ability to do is view that account. By view access only, they will be able to reconcile what has been billed and what has been collected. So from a staff time, there will be some additional work on the part of finance staff primarily. We will also designate somebody here at City Hall as the lead for questions. But with this service, Novato will establish a Rancho Mirage 760 number, and if somebody were to call that number, it would be answered, Rancho Mirage Medical Billing Program, how may I help you? But actually, they would be speaking to somebody from Novato. So we will have a designated telephone number with a designated line. So if our resident calls, they're not going to get confused if they talk to the billing provider thinking that they have the wrong number. They're going to use our name, our information. If someone walks into City Hall here with a question, we will have that staff member that can answer that question right there on the spot. So we'll approach it in two ways, where we will have that available toll-free number that is a Rancho Mirage designated line, but we will also have a staff person that is familiar with the program that can obviously answer our residents' questions. At the end of the day, the most important thing to know is there are no out-of-pocket costs to our residents. You will never get a bill from the city for an ambulance ride. Your insurance company will get a bill, and we will collect what they pay us. Other than that, you will never come out of pocket for an ambulance ride within City of Rancho Mirage. So through this process, we did meet with another billing company, but at the end of the day, kind of based on the factors that I mentioned before of being able to work with CAL FIRE and the fact that this is another public agency, And so they were able to give us a flat price, where the other company was wanting to take a percentage of our collections, and it was somewhat of a black box where we couldn't truly figure out how much we'd have to pay that company to provide that billing service. So with Novato, they were able to come out and say, it doesn't matter if we send one bill or 10,000 bills. The cost for us to do this is $18 per bill. So that's what we will charge you. And Novato provides this same billing service for 13 other agencies within California. But I would say the biggest factor to selecting Novato was the chief that heads this division up is the leading expert in the field. He actually wrote the federal guidelines that govern this process. He goes all over the country and speaks on this. He wrote the federal guidelines. He is the leading expert, and it's his staff and his division that will be leading this on behalf of the city of Rancho Mirage. So that was another huge component for this. So the action today is what we're approving is for Novato to be our billing provider. And the reason we need to do it today is it takes a very long lead time to work with Medicare and get our Medicare billing number. So the action today will allow Novato to go ahead and start filing the federal paperwork for us to get our Medicare billing number, with the goal of having this program go live at the start of the next fiscal year, July 1st, 2017. So that's the pace we're on, is for this program to start July 1st, 2017. In order to achieve that goal, Novato needs to meet the long lead time of the federal government and file our paperwork so that we can get our Medicare billing number. Now, with that, Novato will charge us a flat rate of $18 per patient, and that lockbox that I mentioned earlier is estimated to cost the city about $3,000 a year. Those expenses will be incorporated into our budget projections for the next fiscal year. On the other side, with the help of CAL FIRE and Chief Griggs, we got an estimate for how many medical transports we have in a year, and that estimate was at 2,400 medical transports a year. So assuming 2,400 medical transports a year times the Medicare minimum of $400, we're anticipating additional revenue to the city of $960,000. So this is a way for the city to really take a federal dollar and support our residents' local service without taking any money from our residents. It's almost like filing for a grant. So, we do this in public works and in many different areas of the city. If we can leverage outside dollars, federal dollars, for a project, a road, a park, we do that because it doesn't come from the sources that our residents are paying, yet it's a direct benefit to our residents. This is almost just like filing for a grant. The only thing we're doing is implementing a process to send the bill to Medicare, the federal government, and they're going to send us $400 for every medical transport if that person's on Medicare. So, we're taking federal money and we're supporting a local service. And this is a way that the city can help position the city financially in the future to offset those big future increases that we're planning to see in public safety. So again, if I could stress anything, and the direction from the budget subcommittee was what I want our residents to take home, you will never get a bill from the city of Rancho Mirage under this program. We are only billing insurance companies. I'd like to thank the Budget Subcommittee for all the work that we went through to get here. As I mentioned, there still are some next steps that we have to work through, but the item today would allow us to get started with the federal government and getting that Medicare billing number. With that, I will conclude my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. It certainly appears that it's only a win-win for the city and no downside for our residents. Questions?
Yes, I do. How much was that cost to the residents again?
No out-of-pocket costs.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Are there any questions from the audience of any kind? Seeing none, I'll close the public comments and ask for a motion.
Mayor, can I just make one comment? I think all the work that Isaiah has put into this and his staff, I mean, we've spent a lot of time working on this program, but you look at the numbers and it's just so positive for the city to do this kind of a program. And we'll continue to refine it, I'm sure, in the future. So thank you, Isaiah. Great job. You and your staff should be complimented.
As the times change, we have to change, and this is as inexpensive a way of changing as we'll ever see.
All right, that being said, I'll make a motion that the City Council approve the joint powers agreement with Nevada Fire Protection District to provide medical insurance billing services for ambulance services and the Business Associate Agreement to meet Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act requirements and authorizes the city manager to execute said agreements subject to finalization by the city attorney.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please vote. And the motion is approved 5-0. Before we recess to close session, our attorney, Steve Quintanilla, will review those areas that will be covered.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council at this time is going to recess in closed session for the following items. Conference with legal counsel pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4 regarding 3 potential cases. Conference with legal counsel regarding the existing litigation known as Veronica Juarez versus City of Rancho Mirage and Shuris C. Shaw versus City of Rancho Mirage, and that's pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. And finally, the council will confer with its real property negotiator, which is City Manager Randall Binder and William Enos, City Engineer, regarding the following properties. Bernard White and Sons, Qamar Sultana, Faraz Ahmad, Sadida Shamin, 3 Silvers Palms, LLC, 99-cent stores, only stores, LLC, and Zellman Rancho Mirage, LLC. That's it.
Thank you, and the meeting is now recessed to closed session.
So be it.
So be it another day.